Well, the streaking Seahawks and the Cardinals meet for the second time in 3 weeks. In their Week 12 meeting, Seattle beat Arizona 16-6. Kyler Murray was sacked 5 times and threw a pick 6. Arizona held without a TD for the first time this season. Kyler said they were physically dominated. Now, here is what he's going to face again on Sunday. Seattle's defense ranks 3rd in the NFL in adjusted completion percentage. Now, that accounts for throw distance and does not include drops or throwaways. And after 4 straight games allowing at least 150 yards, the Seattle rush D has improved as well, allowing 84 rushing yards per game over the last 4 outings. So, Mina, you're the expert here as we see RC dancing. He's
turn
grooving,
up RC.
Grooving to the turn.
So jazzy.
I don't know what that is. Is there a name for that? What do we call that?
It's gotta be
RC. He's sitting there in his whole office.
We just chilling.
The swag move. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mina, we got a little off track, but it was totally worth it, I must say. What was your takeaway from the first meeting between these two teams, the Hawks and the Cardinals?
Yeah, that Seahawks defense had Kyler Murray dancing in the pocket like RC there, only he looked a lot less comfortable than Ryan because he was under siege. What really struck me the last time that these teams played was how many unblocked rushers Seattle got. Nearly 20, by the way, according to Next Gen Stats. And a lot of it was through simulated pressures, which was something we saw also last week. The Arizona Cardinals offensive line struggled with against Minnesota. The Vikings are the king of that. Now, you can combat that in a few ways. They need to be better prepared for it. They need to know where the droppers are. And Kyler Murray has to get rid of the ball quickly. But the other thing you can do is to fight that is just run the football well on early downs. They tried last time, but they didn't have a lot of success. And some of that has to do with Seattle's improved run defense since trading for Ernest Jones, which is very real. But I also think that some of it had to do with, game script and whatnot. So I think for Arizona, it's going to be key. Do not fall behind, not just in the terms of the game, but on downs. You don't want to get into 3rd and long. So I think if they can assert themselves physically with James Conner the way they have for much of the year, they're going to be much better positioned against Seattle's creative pressures.
MK, you took me right where I wanted to go because I don't think, look, for as much as we love Kyler Murray and we've talked about the tight end and we've talked about all of the things that they can do from an explosive standpoint, I want everybody to hear me say this. James Conner is the most important part to the Arizona Cardinals offense in this run game. Not only in the run game, but the screen game as well. And they completely took him out of the game. And obviously, they had more backs, and there was no explosive plays on the ground. And I think that's when the Arizona Cardinals are at their best. Seattle does a good job, too, tackling with their corners. And Witherspoon is I know he's one of our favorite guys on this team, but that is something you have to do. James Conner is a physical, powerful runner, and it was so many negative plays created. And you mentioned Leonard Williams, but the penetration of this defensive line and the knockback was what was so impressive. Arizona has to figure out a way to combat that because if they come one-dimensional, I think we get the same result. And remember, this team only scored 6 points the first time they played the Seattle defense.
Right.
When I grew up, I lived on the back of Ames, and the back of Ames was like so far down on the West Bank. And I lived on Genie Street, and a dude named Royal Clark lived on Dolores. And so every street in front of the school would come to the back of the Ames and fight the streets on back of Ames. And we'd always send out Royal first because we knew he was the most physical and violent fighter. That's who James Conner is. And so last game, when James Conner was trying to run the football, he only had 7 carries for 8 yards. All of a sudden, now they've got our guy that usually busts his noses, get his nose bust by guys like Leonard Williams. And I felt like Leonard Williams very early took over this game by being in the backfield, by putting pressure on the quarterback. And so now you got the Arizona Cardinals out of sorts. Now, the one thing I do believe they did find was the fact that Trey McBride is an absolute baller. I believe you have to go to him early on in this game because he is also one of those tone setters for you offensively. But make no mistake about it, if this run game doesn't get going early for the Arizona Cardinals, they're going to have trouble throughout the day because Mina did an excellent take on the Monday after this game on how simulated pressures were getting free runners to Kyler Murray.
RC, you think the folks down at Ames would have sent me out first too?
Nah, we'd have put you
to
in the
get
back.
beat up.
Wow.
We'd have put you in the back.
No.
Is that a rhetorical
You see him?
question?
We'd have
You
told you,
see-
hey, Dan,
RC, you
Dan,
see
if
him
it
to
gets
get
to
everybody
you,
tired.
Dan, run in your house and call the people.
You gotta have them running
I would
lookout,
have led the way. I would have led
standing
the way.
behind a fence or
I
something.
would have led the way, RC. Shut up, Marcus. Yeah, listen, I think you guys' points about Seattle's defense are fair. I do think that the Cardinals offensively are one of the best teams when it comes to counters and keepers. They run such a good counter run game with their multiple tight ends. We call this GH counter, where the guard and the H tight end are the pullers. They bluff the front side defensive end to Hesium, and then James Conner, you guys talked about, it gives a body on a body. I think it really allows his shoulders to stay square and get downhill. So I love that element of their offense. And then their keeper game, there's those double tight ends again. The thing is, it looks just like the counter. They will once again pull that guard and pull that H tight end. So as a defense, you're looking at Kyler turning his back, ball fake, pullers, and there's that kind of down flat by the tight end. Everyone overcommits to James Conner, and you're going to get that little dump off. That right there, in this game, Arizona's going to call a combination of that counter and or keeper 12 to 14 times, and it leads to efficiency and explosive stuff in their offense. I think that's a huge key for Seattle's defense.
The 11-1 Chiefs have a one-game lead on the Bills atop the AFC. Kansas City with a 50% chance to get that top seed, according to ESPN analytics. Now, that goes up to 61% if they beat the Chargers. It drops to 33% with the loss. Buffalo, as you may know, owns the tiebreaker thanks to that head-to-head win earlier this season. So the Chiefs beat the Chargers in L.A. It was 17-10 back in Week 4. RC, give us something to key on as they meet in Arrowhead on Sunday night.
You know what? If you watch the Atlanta Falcons versus the Chargers game this weekend, Derwin James was an absolute game wrecker, but he missed Week 4 against the Kansas City Chiefs because he was suspended. I'm interested in seeing the way that Coach Mentor employs him. Will he be someone that's man-to-man on Travis Kelce when they play this big nickel package? Will they include him in the run front to stop Isaiah Pacheco or Kareem Hunt? Or how will they use him in blitz to pressure the quarterback and attack Jawan Taylor and Wanye Morris? I think he can be the person that turns the tide of this game and gives the edge to the Los Angeles Chargers defense.
So a lot of the conversation around the Chiefs offense this year has just been wildly negative, and probably rightfully so because the underwhelming performances of it. But I feel the last couple weeks they're close. I feel the last couple weeks you watch on tape, you're like, man, that's a close miss. And if they just hit one or two of those, it changes a lot of the narrative about their football team. That's a close miss 2 weeks ago or last week to Justin Watson. This is a close miss down the field to DeAndre Hopkins. And Patrick has mentioned it himself. If he just keeps a ball in field or if he doesn't throw it out of bounds, if they just make one play on a football down the field. Again, a lot of the conversation around them is fair to say they haven't performed up to the Super Bowl standard. But the glass half full perspective can be they're not as far off. If the left tackle can play a little bit better, they're not as far off as maybe the narrative has been all season.
They're not beating themselves like other teams are. They just don't do that, looking at their 9th straight division title.